teach it. All of you are teachers, so you know what I'm talking about. So my whole presentation is, as I've mentioned before, is to change it up and start employing new strategies in class to get your students doing things. And they'll learn. I think people learn while they're having fun. Do you agree with that? It's possible to have fun in class, and I think you learn more of this list. And we're going to start with every student's favorite activity, role play. Students love role play, don't they? They hate it. But if done properly, they'll like it. That's my personal experience. They will like it if you do it properly. So, the advantages to role play are practical applications of what they're learning in class. Taking what they've learned and putting some street cred to it. And learning how to do it, maybe learning what to say or what to do. So, I'm going to do my favorite role play. And you guys are going to help. All right, so I use this in pre-license. I use this in broker class when we talk about agency. I use it in several CE classes that we have a discussion on agency. In particular, this is a discussion of limited dual agency, which in a pre-license class, will we not admit, is one of the most difficult things to teach in pre-license. Agency, period, is difficult. Limited dual agency, it just takes a lot to really get through to them. So I have found this role play actually works. So I'm going to start off by saying my two agents, Mike and Kathy, work for My Gambling Real Estate. Unfortunately, I'm your broker. All right? So Mike gets a listing with the seller, Kathleen. You do a CMA, you do a market analysis, spot on, you spend a lot of time, you really feel confident that the market value is approximately, of Kathleen's house, is approximately $345,000, $350,000. So, tell your seller that you did your CMA and what you think it's worth.
You want me to grab the microphone?
Yeah, thank you, Mike.
Kathleen? I did. Kathleen, I did the best market analysis ever. My broker taught me how to do that, and I am the best. Your home is worth between $340,000 and $350,000.
Kathleen responds like a typical seller and says she wants how much?
$360,000.
$385,000. Has it ever happened? Have you guys ever had a seller that thought their home was worth a little more than what you think of your CMA? Has that ever happened to you? That has happened to me a couple of times. Okay, so Kathleen wants $385,000 for a property. So Kathleen, tell your agent what you want.
Really, I think the property's worth $385,000. What do you think?
Okay, here we go. So, and here's a point that I like to make as well, especially to experienced licensees. May Mike list it for $385,000, even though he knows it's worth $350,000? Yes, but only if he's on record of telling his seller that. I think it's dishonest. I think it's unethical. If you know the seller's asking them to know, but you list it anyway and you don't tell them. So I make that little aside in class to existing agents especially. So you list it for $385,000. You sign a exclusive representation agreement with Kathleen, and boom, it's on the market, and off we go. $385,000. All right. So you are working hard, Kathy, and you run into a buyer named Nikki, and you start showing Nikki homes out in the marketplace, and after the blue brochure. Right. So you start showing Nikki homes, and you sign Nikki up to a buyer's representation agreement. So Nikki signs a buyer representation agreement, and you're showing Nikki homes out in the marketplace, and all of a sudden it dawns on you that Nikki might be interested in Mike's listing. This one over here, $385,000. So my first question to you, class, is, may Kathy introduce her buyer, Nikki, to this property? Depends. What does it depend on? What does it by hands? What does it depend on, Georgia?
What type of agency they sign?
Say again.
What type of agency agreement they sign? If they're single, dual,
Okay. Well, the first thing that we need to establish is what's the office policy on agency at Mike Gamble Real Estate, right? Do I even allow for limited dual agency? And I'll answer that question, yes. I allow for limited dual agency without assigned agents. So, now may Kathy introduce Nikki to the property? Depends on what? Depends on what?
Whether she signed up for a dual agency.
Whether Nikki chose limited dual agency in a representation agreement, right? So ask your buyer, does she want single or limited dual?
Do you want single or limited dual?
So Nikki, you decide, what do you want?
Do I need to explain it to her?
Yeah.
You, maybe, but for time purposes, Nikki, just make a choice.
Limited dual.
You're going to choose limited dual agency. Okay, great. So she chose limited dual agency. Now may she introduce Nikki over to the property?
Yes.
What's the seller chosen, right? So what did our seller choose? Mike, ask your seller what she wants.
Are you okay with other agents from my office showing your property if they're represented by our office?
Yes.
We have tons of people trying to sell it, so I'm glad you said yes.
So see, the seller chose limited dual agency, the buyer chose limited dual agency. Now may we introduce the buyer client to the property? You bet, we got the green light. So you're at work, our seller's at work, you're back at the office working. Kathy takes Nikki over to the property, walks into the property, and immediately Kathy thinks, this thing is overpriced. Additionally, she thinks, typical Mike Johnston listing. That she just thinks that with her inside voice. Question. May Kathy say to Nikki, I think this thing's overpriced? No? Why not? Why not? Somebody want to volunteer? Why not? Kathy?
Oh, yeah.
Because you said your office policy was limited dual without assigned
My office policy, limited dual without assigned agents. What limited dual without assigned agents means, we treat both of our clients neutrally. That means we don't suggest, advise, direct, or ask one client to do something that's going to disadvantage our other client. We treat them both the same. If we were to turn to Nikki and say, I think this thing's overpriced, who gets hurt? Our seller, which is equally our client. Kelsey.
What if you say, before we put an offer in, I think we should do a market analysis of this home?
Okay, so may Kathy do a market analysis on the property?
Yes.
Of course. What if the market analysis points to 350? Could she still do a market analysis?
Yes.
Kind of. Here's the answer from the attorney of the Real Estate Commission on that question. Kathy may prepare a market analysis and give it to Nikki, but if it points to anything less than our seller's asking price, she may not point that out. The buyer has to draw their own conclusion. So Kathy can't say, Nikki, here's the market analysis, as you can see, it's well worth that right there. Can't do that. Isn't that a weird answer? But that's the legal answer. That's the legal answer. So yes, Kelsey, we may do a market analysis, but if you cannot interpret it as and point out that it's less than what our seller is asking because our seller got hurt. So she can't say that. So Nikki says, I like this property. I think I want to write an offer. And what does every buyer ask their agent? What do you think I ought to make an offer, right? It just comes tumbling out of them. They learn it in buyer school. They can't even help it. How much do you think I ought to make an offer for? Now, how does Kathy answer that?
What do you think it's worth?
Can Kathy say, well, I think I ought to make an offer for 350? Maybe start at 340, but if you bought it for 350, can't say that. So Nikki says, well, what do you think it's worth, Kathy? What does Kathy say?
I gave you the info, make a choice.
I gave you the info, make a choice. Does that work for you and your buyers, Garrett?
Yep.
Okay, I don't know too many buyers would put up with that response. So what would you say? So what would you say to, well, what do you think I ought to make an offer for? You know what agency law says? When we Mirandize them, in other words, we give them the blue brochure, which I learned that from Ron Miniger, genius. When we Mirandize them with the blue brochure, we're also supposed to explain agency. We're supposed to explain agency. We're supposed to explain limited dual agency. At the time Nikki chose limited dual agency, we're supposed to explain to her what it means, and that our seller, and if we come to that, we have to treat you both the same, and we can't suggest you do something that's going to disadvantage the other, and vice versa. We're never going to say anything to our seller that's going to be to your disadvantage. We have to treat you kind of both neutrally. So when Nikki says, what do you think I ought to make an offer? That's when Kathy said, remember when we talked about that and you signed that buyer rep agreement? And that thing where we might have to be neutral? Guess what? That's where we are right now. I can help you, I can write the offer, I just can't advise you to pay anything less than what our seller's asking, because that's our duty to our seller. I hope you understand. Or something like that. Okay? So Kathy says that to Nikki, and Nikki said, oh, okay, well, I want to make an offer of $350. Can Kathy write it up?
Yes.
Of course. The difference was she didn't direct or advise them to do that. So she writes an offer of $350. She gives it to Mike. Mike shows it to Kathleen.
Don't shoot me.
And Kathleen does what every seller does and says what?
I'm not gonna give this place away.
No. What does Kathleen the seller say? What should I do? What should I do? And what does Mike say?
What would you like to do?
And you say what? Just say something.
Should I counter back? Or should we reject?
If you'd like to, we could always counter.
If we could like to, we could always counter. And then Kathleen says, how much should we make on a counter, right? Doesn't the seller want your opinion? Well, how much should we counter offer? What does Mike say?
Well, we have it listed for $385. I gave you the advice of $340 to $350, so it's your call.
Well, what do you think? I'm going to be Kathleen. What do you think I ought to make an offer, a counter offer for them?
Question.
Okay, now the same rule applies to our listing agent. He cannot advise, direct, suggest our seller do anything that's going to damage who? The buyer. So this is where you explain, remember when we went over limited dual agency? Guess what? That's where we are now. So I can't tell you to make a counter. Our buyer wants to buy it for $350,000. I can tell you and show you that, of course. But if you want to make a counter offer, it is against the rules for me to give you any direction on that. You tell me what you'd like to do. I'll help you. But that's how it goes. So anyway, same rule applies for our seller. And then I run it a little bit further. Then I change it up and say Mike Gamblin Real Estate offers limited dual agency with assigned agents. So let's pretend that that's our scenario now. So I change it up. May Kathy introduce Nikki to the property?
Yes.
Yes. She walks in and she thinks this thing's overpriced. May she say that to her buyer?
Yes.
Not only may she needs to. That's her obligation. If she really thinks it's overpriced, that's the difference between limited dual with assigned and without assigned agents. She is supposed to advocate in behalf of her buyer client. Because the theory is your job to advocate in behalf of your seller client. So in that particular instance, you can say, I think you ought to make an offer $340. I think $350 is the number, actually. But why don't we start at $340? That's your job. That's the difference. Limited dual. Now, the seller is selling. Why are you selling, Kathleen?
I want to downsize.
Say you're transferred to Denver. She's transferred to Denver. And she has to sell. She's moving in 6 weeks. She doesn't really want 2 housing payments. She's getting a little antsy that it hasn't gone under contract. And Mike knows that, of course. Can Mike mention that to anybody, an interested buyer?
No.
Why not?
No, without permission.
Okay, Kathy knows that. Kathy knows the seller's moving because they're transferred. May Kathy mention that to Nikki?
No. Not without permission.
Who says yes? She can. Who says no?
Are they as assigned
Who said, there's assigned agents. Kathy's the assigned agent for the buyer who says, yes, she can divulge that. You're wrong. That is confidential information protected by statute. I don't care what the agency scenario is, you may never divulge confidential information. I don't care if it's limited to a with, limited to a without, single, whatever. Without the permission of the affected client. Right? So, well, we need to crawl before we walk, before we run. So I just made the basic point. I'm more interested in talking about confidential information, and that agency doesn't just because we're the assigned agent for one doesn't mean we can do and say anything. Confidential information is always confidential. All right. It's deemed non-confidential if you found out from Director Jackson Hines that if you found out from a third party, it is then reclassified as non-confidential information. Yeah.
That newspaper.
But that's running, let's walk first, especially if you're in pre-license, don't drill down too far. Anyway, that's a fun little role play that I do. Did you guys enjoy that role play? It works. I had a BCOO class 2 weeks ago. I had 24 students, 9 designated brokers, 1 California broker coming to Idaho to get his license, 9 associate brokers, and the rest of them were salespeople and 1 staffer who was here to learn about trust accounts. The entire class was confused about limited dual without assigned agents. They said, I had brokers 30 years experience saying, well, Kathleen, of course Kathleen can tell them they can offer $340,000. That's your job. No. So even existing licensees do not have agency dialed in. So this works in a CE class as well. I was astonished at the misinformation that particular class had 2 weeks ago. So this works for existing licensees in addition to pre-license. Let's give our actors probably some of the most emotional acting I've seen.